Attention, veterans and entrepreneurs. You do not want to miss this conversation we are about to have with the founder and president of the board of Infinite Hero Foundation, Colin Baden. I hope I did not mess that up. I practiced it like crazy. And also the executive director of Infinite Hero, Courtney Janes. Thank you for being.
Hello,
Colin and Courtney. Wow, that was a bad cold open right there.
we'll make up for it as we go along.
As you're watching this, as I like to say, laugh with me, laugh at me, just laugh and come along on a journey. We're going to have an awesome conversation today. And Colin and Courtney, I know you are so busy with Infinite Hero Foundation right now, especially with one of your major annual events coming up in July.
Yes, we have our big, it's our eighth year doing this event. It's called the Ravenna Invitational, and it's in Littleton, Colorado. It's a fantastic day of golf and community that one of our board members actually hosts each year. So we're very fortunate to have him put this on for us, because it's not a small undertaking and they work months and months to make this the success that it is. So we're ramping up for that right now. So if you're in the area or you really love golf, let me know. We'll get you signed up.
Yes, if you love golf and you really have a heart for veterans, you need to be at this event. I had the honor of being able to attend the 2017 event, and it was the setting is incredible. What really was profound was being able to talk with the veterans and the leaders of the organizations that Infinite Hero supports, and to see what they're doing, the impact and the leverage that Infinite Hero has because of your model for how you support other nonprofit organizations, other service organizations, and to get a chance to get to know them, to hear the stories, meet the people face to face is just like, my gosh, it was humbling having dinner with those that have served and suffered for it, and then come home.
Yeah, I think that's something really unique and special about this event, is that you get an opportunity to really spend some quality time with, our veterans, and, we have active duty military that come out and participate as well. But just to kind of be able to have that touch point and hear their stories personally makes a big difference. I think it connects people differently to the mission, and it gives them a better understanding as to what we're doing as an organization and the outcomes. I think it's always exciting to be able to hear firsthand the impact that we're making as an organization in partnership with these amazing programs that we're funding.
Yes. Well, for example, the exoskeleton that helps those that have been paralyzed to be able to walk. Could you share that story a little bit? Infinite Hero Foundation was instrumental in having that approved by the Veterans Administration. Is that correct?
Well, that was before my time, but I've heard
on.
sorry.
Early on, when we started the foundation, we met a gentleman who had been injured in Afghanistan, a guy named Gary Linfoot, and he was in a helicopter. He was a helicopter pilot, and he had lost the use of his legs in a crash, and we were looking at investing in different areas of mobility devices in the world. And we came across this company that built essentially an aluminum exoskeleton that Gary could strap on to his back and could actually walk. It replaced his legs. It was cutting edge technology, and so it wasn't perfect. It was something that required two people. So his wife Mary always had to be there with him to operate the device. But it was the beginning of a path of investment that the foundation took on, which led to us investing in the next device, which was called an iBot, essentially a wheelchair on four wheels. And the user can push a button and the wheels rotate, and the user is then now pivoting off just two wheels, but he's at eye level with anyone he's around, and essentially could use it like walking, only it's on wheels. And that's something that's very robust. It's something that the VA became very interested in, but it all started with that exoskeleton with Gary, and Gary's now rocking around on an iBot, and it's something that Infinite Hero continues to invest in. It's been one of our. It's a success story that's also easy for someone to understand. We've invested in a lot of things that are really complicated, required lots and lots of research hours, and the results are not as evident as it is in Gary's case, but they are all incredible investments that Infinite Hero's been able to make, and make a difference in this veterans community.
Yes, and how, Colin, you started Infinite Hero when you were still working as CEO of Oakley, and how were you able to do that with such a demanding? You already had such a demanding job, and I look at that and go, highly capable and productive people are always super busy and able to get stuff done, but it just boggles the mind to think when you're already so so up to your hips, so to speak, in a high level executive position, to be able to start something like this. How did that come about?
Well, I wasn't alone. I have a great partner in crime, a guy named Eric Poston. He ran and still runs today Oakley's military division, which is a group of people that handle product development and sales directly for first responders and military. And it's a incredible aspect of Oakley's business, because it really it challenges you to do your best work. These people depend on these products to protect them in unpleasant situations. So it's really something that if you're an innovator and a design geek, you can really push your limits in that space. And the great thing about it is you get to meet some amazing people, that serve on our front lines. And something I was always amazed to find this community so compelling, that when we're at war, as long as we had been, a lot of the people I got to know, were close to people that were hurt serving our country, or were hurt themselves, or unfortunately didn't come home at all. And it both Eric and I, it wore on us. There was a tragic Chinook helicopter accident in Afghanistan. About 38 people were on it. It was shot down by an RPG. Eric and I both knew people on that aircraft. And it was kind of a moment that, in both of us just snapped and said, well, we've got to get some guns in the fight and get in helping these people. And we were simply going to just start funding different charities that already existed. And Eric and I had the idea, well, hey, we're an authentic company. Wouldn't it be great to follow a model that made Oakley so successful, that we would invest in crazy harebrained ideas in ways that maybe other charities hadn't, and maybe some of these things would work and we could do a whole lot of good. And so we were essentially venture capitalists, in that we would not run programs, but we would find some really good ideas and get them going. And that was the basic model. And so through a revenue stream created by Oakley initially, and now by a broad group of people who have invested in Infinite Heroes ideas, we've managed to help about 38 different groups. We've raised in the last 10 years about, $5 million, probably helped close to 60,000 veterans and their families, and
That's incredible.
It's really been an awesome journey.
Yes, indeed. And it's transitioning back into the civilian population is difficult under the best of circumstances, and especially with something that I had never thought about until talking with your folks at Infinite Hero Foundation. Was we've got a whole generation of military veterans that were basically spent their whole career in wartime mode because of the global war on terror. They haven't really known civilian life, as opposed to like my dad's generation from World War II. And he told stories like how it took him like a good year to stop hitting the deck every time a car backfired after just 3.5 years in the Pacific. And I can't imagine what that's like, having spent an entire career or, several years and then coming back wounded, disabled. And we don't do a good job from the civilian side of things of really delivering on our debt to them, our promise to take care of them when they come back.
Yeah, we're if you work at all with the VA, it's a huge organization, and we spend tons of money in this community. Unfortunately, you drive around this country, it's a big place, and these people have gone back to their homes, and it's hard to have access to great care when you're struggling with the ravages of being in combat for so long. And
yes,
Infinite Hero is really just a small piece of a giant network that needs to be in place and supported if we're going to be effective at all in helping these people regain a normal life. And so we're just one little piece of that narrative, and it will never be big enough. It just won't.
Well, in all fairness, though, it seems that the way you've structured Infinite Hero and the impact that you're having is really more like a small hinge that's swinging a really, really big door in terms of the impact that you're having.
Well, I just I have a very high anxiety about how I know I'm going to meet somebody that missed out on some treatment that would have changed their life. Yeah. And they're right around the corner, and I just see the possibility of always being present for a community that's it's going to go on for years. I mean, this stuff doesn't just go away. We stop fighting. It's there. It's in depth. And we've got to have more guns in the fight.
Yes, we do. And you're bringing some great resources to the table with that. Courtney, you joined Infinite Hero Foundation in 2019.
I did.
Which is right before massive challenges came to bear in 2020. How
yes. The timing, right?
Yeah, timing's everything, isn't it? Holy cow! Who knew? And fortunately, you were there to bring your leadership ability to the table as well. What? Geez, I've got like 5 questions crashing together.
Right? What do you even say about that?
Wait, but how?
It's definitely
you've had a lot of experience in the not-for-profit arena.
Yes.
In high-level leadership roles. Did that help prepare you for being able to weather the storm in 2020? Because it's just not-for-profits have been devastated, just even worse it seems than the for-profit sector, in terms of not-for-profits that just didn't make it because resources dried up. They weren't able to do their mission. How did that help prepare you for being able to lead in such a turbulent environment?
I have to say, I think, being in the nonprofit space and the leadership role in that space, you learn to do more with less. I mean, that's just kind of the mantra, at least it has been for me, because I always firmly believe that the more that we can do, in that space, with less resources almost, the more of an impact we can make, because we're then putting more of our funding where it really needs to be. And a big piece of that is having the right people that are part of that community. So, your board members, your advisors, they're integral to the outcomes and what that looks like. As a organization, I don't think any nonprofit could have been really well prepared. None of us were, for what COVID brought. I think all of a sudden it was like, okay, we have this thing that's happening, so let's pivot and push everything a few months. And then everything started going from a few months to 6 months to a whole year's passed, and we're still kind of in this limbo. And then that continued on for another year, and I think we're still seeing the impact of that with little blips in the radar of what what that looks like, from a event standpoint, or, we have, an outbreak here, whatever that might be. And so I think it's just always being flexible and open-minded in terms of what that planning can look like, and setting clear goals. And I know that is easier said than done, especially coming out of what COVID presented us with. But as an organization, I think, we're very proud of the fact that when COVID did come, we were working incredibly closely with our partners that we were actively funding at that time, because a lot of those programs were in-person programs that had to come to a halt. And so, as somebody that leading the organization, it's like, well, how can we continue to make an impact, continue to bring services, continue to get help to those people who need it most, despite the circumstances that we find ourselves in. And, our program partners and the organizations that we work with are just truly incredible. And, after a lot of, I think, back and forth and conversations and trying to figure out what was next, a lot of those programs were able to shift to a virtual platform. And so during a time where things were closed down and, people were struggling to get access to support and care, we actually served more people than ever during COVID, because
Really
able to pivot to make those more accessible. So we were actually able to reach a broader audience with the virtual piece. And, not to take away the importance of in-person programming, because I think that there is certain components of that, depending on what your need is and the type of program that it is, but to know that those people could get continued care and that didn't have to stop. Because I'm sure you've heard, like so many of us have, the stats coming out of COVID, especially in the military and veteran space, with increase in suicide by 20%. Even active duty, they're seeing a 30% increase in suicide. So
my gosh,
when you're looking at these staggering numbers, it's always about, well, what can we continue to keep doing? How can we make this continue to work? And so I think, when you talk about, the positive things that have come out of this period of time, it's being able to, make those shifts in the way that we were managing those programs and make sure that people get continued care. Now, moving forward, the exciting thing is a lot of those programs now have a virtual component. So there's not an access to, receiving the treatment that you might need, just regardless of where you might be located in the United States. Because, oftentimes we see, people being in remote areas or not having the access. They can't get out to Texas or wherever that program may be. And so I do think, when we're looking back at lessons learned from what we've just gone through, being able to be flexible and continue to work together as a team collectively with our program partners made all the difference. And again, having the amazing support of our board, our grant committee, and those individuals that are such an important part of our mission, and just keeping lines of communication open throughout all of that. I know we were having quite a few calls with the board of, kind of, well, what does this look like? What are we doing? And being able to share those updates from at least the program standpoint, and reassure those people that invest and give their support to Infinite Hero that, hey, we're committed to working through this one way or another. And we're going to make sure that those people who need it are going to get the help that they need.
Yes. And did your what you looked at in organizations to invest in shift during the pandemic as well?
We have the 5 pillars that we focus on as an organization. I think, given some of the challenges that we were seeing, especially in the brain health and the suicide prevention space, we did focus some of our funding in that arena during COVID, because we were trying to meet the needs that we were seeing in the community. In the conversations that I was having with other organizations, we're constantly focused on how we can collaborate and work together and kind of come up with solutions and keep open lines of communication. That was at the heart of it, So I think just continuing to, have, like I said, that clear and open communication, makes a big difference.
Well, and I think trying to be good stewards of the resources that we are able to raise, managing the outcomes and understanding how the efficacy of these investments, it takes a ton of work. We don't just write a check and walk away. We're connected at the hip almost in forever. And some of these organizations, they take off and they don't need our support anymore. They become self-sustaining and are doing great work, whether we're involved or not. And some struggle a little bit because of what they're trying to accomplish. So I think we're a little unique in the way we take ownership. We don't run a program, but we take ownership of the investment, and we carry it through and make sure that if it's working, wonderful. If it needs some tweaking, we do that. If it ultimately didn't work out the way we had anticipated, we'll find the next great program and do it all over. But it is a full time commitment to make sure these dollars really do the work that we expect of them.
Very much like, as you mentioned before, like a venture capital approach or even a private equity approach.
Yep.
To the organizations.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're very connected to the outcomes, and like Colin said, it's continuing to have that ongoing conversation and staying connected throughout the program to monitor what that looks like. But as you mentioned, like during COVID, we were seeing from some of our partners like a 300% increase in requests for brain health services, mental health services.
300%.
Yes, we have one of our partners that they were seeing between, I would say across the board, on average, people were seeing 150 to 300% increase in requests for mental health and suicide prevention programming support. And, the conversations that were had during that time were hard conversations, but it was about what can we do to kind of try to meet those needs and make sure that we are being good stewards of, the funding that people entrust us with.
Well, and depending on how they are delivering the services they offer, being able to scale quickly for that big of a spike, that must have been a huge challenge.
Oh, definitely.
Some of them seem to have models that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's something that they're, still being, focused on and worked through. I mean, those numbers are still out there, right? So even though programs were pivoted and be able to make adjustments to reach as many people as possible, there's still a great need out there that we're seeing, especially with the impact that COVID's had from a mental health perspective in a lot of those, different areas that we serve in.
And one of the things that impressed me when I first learned about Infinite Hero Foundation was that you also address the entire family too, though. It helped the veterans, but also, there are times when it's really, the veteran experience in the military. When someone serves, so a lot of civilians, I don't think realize it's really the whole family that serves in a sense, and it has a big impact on the family. And often they're not included in the services that are targeting, helping veterans get what they need. Has that been something that's new in the veteran resources space?
I think what's changed. I mean, there are a lot of charities that are focused on family support in that community. But our specific look into the mechanics of mental health and well-being, he kind of brought a new, at least in our world, brought a new voice to the table around how to help the entire family, but not in the traditional sense. We're not, we're not providing counseling or, what you would traditionally expect to see. We're looking at treatments that can help a family unit, or we're dealing with leadership in the space of innovation that can change the dynamic in a family setting. So I would say it's not it hasn't been historically a traditional approach for Infinite Hero, but that's in alignment with its mission of
Okay.
kind of solving problems the way it had always approached problem solving.
And Courtney had mentioned the 5 pillars for Infinite Hero Foundation. Could you tell us more about that?
So over the 10 years that we've been doing this work, our methods and way of describing our work, evolved like any other business over time. And we found if we look back at where we have put our dollars, it was these 5 pillars that seemed to best reflect the kind of work we were doing, and it helped frame up for the board, how we look at the grants that we make. And so with these pillars in place, it became much easier to say, okay, this fits our mission, or no, this really doesn't fit within the work that we do, and we should, find a place for it, but it's really not what Infinite Hero would where we do our best work, it wouldn't make sense. So
Sure.
in the 5 pillars, we look at PTSD, suicide prevention, family support, leadership, and mobility. And within that group, it's depending on where we're seeing the greatest need. Where we began our little adventure, we spent a lot of time on mobility. And I would say within the last 2 years, we've spent most of our time in mental health, and the kinds of investments reflect the shift of where we saw the greatest need. And there are also, groups within our portfolio that are things that we feel strongly about, and we just continue to invest in, knowing that maybe just by their nature, they'll never reach critical mass the way some of our other investments have been able to. But they're still very relevant to our mission, so we continue to invest in them.
I'd like to shift to a little bit different kind of question. And for both of you, you've had very senior leadership roles in organizations that do a lot of great work, both in the not-for-profit and for-profit space. Over time, as your careers have advanced, how has the way you perceive your role and approach your role as a leader, how has that changed as your responsibilities increased?
So I've gone completely backwards in my career. I live on a rock field of Pacific, so I can't say I can say that I have spent more time thinking about Infinite Hero just because I have the bandwidth to do so, and and we as an organization have done a lot of good, but it just feels like people that get to know the work that we do and the kind of street credentials we've been able to build over the last 10 years, and just the expectation of what we could do is so much higher than our reality. and that's something I'd always challenge the board to have in the back of its head, that we're doing some great stuff, but it's just scratching the surface of what we could do. And I see limitless possibility in the work we could be doing in this space.
It sounds
And
like the effect of the more you do, the more you can see can be done.
Yeah, and look what's going on in the world of first responders. It's all relevant.
Yeah,
It all could be leveraged in such a great way. And some of the treatments we've exposed could accelerate and become widely adopted. It takes the VA a long time. I understand it's a large government organization to adopt new ideas. It all has to be vetted and proven, and people are hurting. Be easy to quickly adopt some of these new ideas, and they have. Like this year alone, I think the VA has just started, in a similar vein, put money out there that doesn't necessarily check all the boxes of the government documents, and I think it's an exciting time for the VA, because if all of this stuff pans out the way it has for us, maybe some of the things that we think are of value in this space, they will fund, just because they've proven it, and we'll get some braver people to do wonderful things.
And it seems in the not-for-profit space, there's a tendency for donors, unlike in the for-profit space, with investors, they want to see, they're after outcomes, typically put $1 in, get more dollars back. Yet in the not-for-profit space, that seems to shift, where donors have a tendency to, as you mentioned, where there's more box checking as opposed to a focus on outcomes. Has that been an effect that you've found helps or hinders?
Well, I think my experience working at Oakley is your success was always tied to your credibility, your authenticity. And I think if you look at our board composition and the work that we've done, it's all roll up your sleeves, authentic work with real outcomes that are measurable. And that's the legacy, I think, that's made us as successful as we are. We don't look for people with deep pockets. We look for people with passion and a real capability to make a difference. So we depend on that, which is really hard, but you can't replicate it. It's not, it's not BS. It's all, an honest commitment to the cause. And that to me has served us the best. And sure, we struggle for dollars at times, but that stuff can come and go depending on our fundraising efforts. But if you don't have the other part, then it's all, it's not real, and it's hard to be passionate about it.
Yes. And the passion comes through in your mission statement, in reading your website. I was looking at how you approach articulating the mission statement and the 5 pillars and the pledge. I want to read this to make sure I get this right. One of the quotes that really stuck with me is, look for the impossible challenges and drive through to find solutions. That's quite a commitment.
Yeah, and it's just right out of the brand book of Oakley.
Really? Okay.
It's super simple, but it worked really well there, and I expect it'll work really well for us. And
well, it seems to be. It seems to be.
We just want it a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
So is 2022 the 10th anniversary for Infinite Hero?
It is. Big 10.
Is. No small feat.
Courtney, I wanted to ask about your perspective on leadership, having done a lot of work with leading large not-for-profit organizations, because part of it is in the 1990s when I was doing work with larger corporations, one of the things we started to hear was like, look, if you really want to learn how to lead, go get involved with a not-for-profit organization, largely because of having to work with so many volunteers, such a different dynamic or different thought process than being in a typical corporate environment.
It's definitely a different approach, I think. But I think there's obviously things that are consistent and overlap, but I think your mindset in the nonprofit space is a bit different in the way that you're approaching your day to day. And I think for me at least, there's a different sense of accountability because the outcomes of what we do as an organization, an Infinite Hero or any of the other organizations that I've been part of, is service to others. At the end of the day, I put quite a bit of pressure on myself, probably too much at times. But I do feel so personally responsible for, the impact that we're making and helping to change and better other people's lives. Right. When I think about the sacrifice that, our military and those that have served have made for our country, I feel this incredible responsibility and sense of accountability to do whatever I can and to make Infinite Hero as successful as possible so that we can really, live in and continue to grow our mission. Like Colin said, I think we've just scratched the surface, and I firmly believe that. I've shared this with the board. I'll share it now. I think, the last 2 years of, going through COVID have certainly been the most challenging in my career. And, I think mentally it's definitely presented a lot of tough days, to say the least, especially when you see what's on the line. You understand the outcomes and the importance of being able to do the work and invest in what we're investing in, because, at the end of the day, that's going to be changing and even in some cases saving lives. So it's an immense amount of pressure I put on myself, to say the least. But I do think, from a leadership perspective, when you're really invested in something, when you have that like heart connection to what you do each and every day, you are holding yourself accountable to everything that's kind of going on and the outcomes. And at the heart of that is wanting to be of service to others and to make an impact in the space you're in. I think you'll find success in what you're doing. Like I said, not to mention those hard days aside, but they are part of what strengthens you. I think being able to navigate, the challenges that the last 2 years have presented and to still be where we are today, I'm very proud of that. But there's so much more work to be done. So it's kind of like resetting that, hitting the reset button. Okay, let's move forward and see what's next and what we can do as an organization to, really get this thing to continue to grow and have a bigger impact, so that the success of what we're investing in can have a ripple effect. Because it's not just necessarily, and you talked about this earlier, it's not just on the person that's going through that programming. It's in those people that are connected to them. So their family, their friends, the people that they may work with. It has such a significant impact across the board, and when you talk about the family impact piece that, is one of our pillars, the family support, one of the programs that we're currently funding right now, the third phase of that program is to bring the family in and have them go through certain parts of that programming with that individual. And hearing, when we get to hear like the success stories, or, I get a chance to talk to somebody that's going through the program, and you hear from them and you hear that tone in their voice, that, just that moment of they're finding some relief, they're finding hope, not just for themselves, but for their loved ones. It's an incredible gift. I really don't think I could be in any other space. Because I get more out of it than I could ever give, just on a personal level, because of those moments. They drive me, they make me work harder. I want to be better each and every day. And I want to do that for Infinite Hero and continue to, like Colin said, we've just scratched the surface, and I'm clawing away, trying to scratch and scratch.
But it must be so so gratifying to be able to see the impact that it has and how it helps the veterans and their families.
Oh, it is. I mean, it's what keeps me going. It keeps you wanting to push harder, drive more, do more, and continue to be better, on a daily basis. And it's kind of my mindset, at least, and what, allows me to get up and push each and every day to be as successful as I can in whatever my endeavors might be for the day, whether it's just getting through the emails that have come through overnight or, right. Getting a chance to connect back with the organizations that we work with. I think building those relationships, and you got to experience a little bit of that and see that at the event that you attended. It's just a really
it was space. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's so unique. And the fact that everybody's collaborative. It's not a competition. Oftentimes in the nonprofit space, I wouldn't say oftentimes, but you will see it's a bit of a competitive space. Everybody's kind of competing for dollars, and what that looks like can take away from the fact that we're all in this together. And so just being in the space that Infinite Heroes created, in this collaborative space, in this funding space, it's just such a unique community, because we're all coming together to see how we can be stronger together. What can we do to serve more people and make a bigger impact?
And having had the opportunity to participate in one of the annual events at Ravenna, as you're watching this, if you golf, you need to be there. It's an incredible golf course. There's so much more to the experience, though. And hearing some of the presentations of organizations that Infinite Hero has supported, what they're doing, what kind of results they're getting, where they're headed. It was just some which are founded and led by warfighters themselves, and to hear their stories was just, it still gives me chills just to think about the impact that was represented by those organizations, and then to meet and sit down and break bread with some of the wounded veterans that have been helped through Infinite Hero Foundation was just put a really fine point on it, on how much of an impact you're having, how that is changing the lives of the veterans in ways that otherwise wouldn't have happened. Like Colin mentioned, those would have been people that we'd bump into on the street and go, oh my gosh, we didn't do enough to make sure that person got helped.
We have we do a grant cycle once a year. How many applicants did we have last year?
Oh, it was around 180, give or take.
Wow.
Yeah.
Looking for our help. And so out of that 180, we helped 3.
Yeah, we're funding 3 programs this year.
So
just give you an idea of scope of what that.
And that's not. It's more out of a function of staying true to our mission. But at the same time, there's 180 people asking for our help, and we helped 3 of them. There's a lot of need.
Yes. Yes. So how are donors attracted to Infinite Hero? Does your like the pledge on how you're approaching the Infinite Hero has in terms of looking for the impossible challenges and finding the solutions, the 5 pillars, do those help attract donors and volunteers that are needed?
Well, I think the way we've over time coalesced around those 5 pillars has helped tell a simple story about a complicated message. And I think that has probably made Courtney's life a little easier. You don't have to have 2 hours to explain how brain health is important in this space. It's just, you only get a little bit of time to convince somebody to invest in your cause. And this simpler and more direct we can make it at Infinite Hero, that it's helped. I do think our support base has changed because of things that are going on, like the pandemic. It's all been positive, but it's a fluid environment. When you say, Courtney, that
Yeah, I agree. I think the one thing that is consistent, though, is people really resonate with our mission and what we're trying to accomplish, because it isn't your everyday run of the mill, like, oh, we're, helping X, Y, and Z. We're just taking a unique approach to try to really move the needle on what recovery looks like. We're reimagining that on a daily basis. And I think people really can resonate with that, especially when we're able to share outcomes and talk about that as an organization, because, there's some really amazing stories that have been shared that, I think when people look at the whole picture, really, confirms for donors, I think, especially like that this is for them where they want to invest their time and energy and dollars.
So how can people get involved with Infinite Hero Foundation?
Well, I mean, the first step is visit the website. We have quite a bit of information on there. It just depends on the capacity that they'd like to be involved.
Okay.
We have people that reach out, consistently about opportunities and looking for different ways to be involved. I mean, giving is always a wonderful way to be involved, to help us continue to do the work that we're doing. First and foremost, we can't do that without the support of the amazing community that does give throughout the year. And so we're continually looking to grow that and build out our base of supporters. So by all means, that's a great way. But, if there's programs, that they'd want to have conversations about, I mean, I think the closer we get, Colin mentioned we have a grant cycle that is yearly, and there's different, deadlines throughout that cycle. We have our first big deadline coming up July 1st. So I've spent significant periods of time in my day, each day, the last few weeks, talking to prospective organizations. So if that's something that, an organization's watching this and wanting to know how to get involved, reach out to me and let's have a conversation and talk about the programming that you're offering and if that meets mission and if there's potential for us to work together and what that looks like. I'm always open to those conversations, and it doesn't always end in the fact that like, oh, hey, this is the perfect for our mission. But what I walk away with is an opportunity to learn more about what's going on in the space. And who knows, we may have a veteran that reaches out to us, which happens quite frequently, looking for support, and I can connect them. It's all about, I think, creating a community where we're coming together to do the most that we can for those that have served our country. And, just keeping open lines of communication to figure out how we can support one another.
Excellent. And it seems there's also volunteer opportunities as well. I know we've only got 2 minutes left, and I wanted to ask about your second annual Heroes and Hot Rods event that's coming up. If you're watching this, if you're anywhere near Southern California, or you can hop a plane or drive, you need to come out for this event. This looks like this is going to be incredible.
It's going to be.
If you don't mind, I'd like to share the graphic that's on your website for that.
It's our artwork for the year, and those vehicles will be at the car show, as a matter of fact. Nice. The truck in the background is an Infinite Hero tribute truck that one of our supporters had. I think it's 800 hours of custom paint work that went into that vehicle, and that'll be at the event. We also have a whole bunch of military vehicles coming out that span, I don't know how many different years. I mean, it's World War II vehicles to current. We have the color guard coming out. We have active duty
Nice.
folks coming out to be there to present, have a table. And then we have all these amazing vehicles that are coming out, all different types. And we do cackle car fire ups. I mean, it's unlike any other car show you've been to. I guarantee that.
Looks like it's going to be a great event. If it's given how well you have produced the Ravenna event every year, this is going to really be something special.
Yes, and we do love to welcome our volunteers for that. So if there's somebody that would like to come out to help us that day, I will love to hear from them.
Excellent. And we've got, as you can see, as you're watching this, go to infinitehero.org. We've got that scrolling for you at the bottom. We'll put also a link in the notes after the broadcast if you're watching this on replay. And one last closing question. What would you both recommend to people that want to do more for veterans? They're really, they're really starting to develop a heart for veterans, understand the need there. What would your advice be for them on how to get started?
I think if you go to our website, you can find all of the organizations that we've spent time and money on. They're there for a reason. Any one of them would die to have help. And it's just I think it's a great resource. If you want to get plugged into this space, you will find it on our website at infinitehero.org. And if I had been aware of all of that when we started this journey, we'd be way down the road of success, a lot further. Just because building up that community with an authentic lens in place, it's all vetted. It's incredibly valuable. That would be a great place to start.
And if there's any questions that people have that we can answer for them from Infinite Heroes perspective, there's a contact us button on the site, and those emails come to me and our operations director, and we respond, normally within the day. So we're happy to kind of help guide people or answer other questions that may come up.
Yeah, and I can attest to that. Infinite Hero is very responsive, does a great job in responding to that. Some organizations don't. You send in a request for information or ask a question and don't hear, it's a long time. And Infinite Hero has always been very prompt in responding. Courtney, Colin, thank you so much. I apologize, we ran a little bit over. I know you've got things to get to, other meetings, and thank you for taking time out of your hectic schedule for talking with us today.
Well, thank you for having us. It was really nice to connect with you today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week.
Thank you. And as you're watching this, thank you for being part of Wolf's Watch. And as always, we will see you on the trail.
Thank you, guys.